Where am I from?
Mm-hmm.
From Halifax County. Been here all my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, tell me, where are we in? What room are we in right now?
I'm in my, what room?
Yes.
I'm in my sewing room.
And so, how did you get into making these beautiful quilts? When did it all start for you?
I got into it, I saw a picture in a magazine of the Underground Railroad, but I've been sewing long before this. And it just sparked something with me to make this quilt, I first made a quilt. This is just a hanger now, I'm just making hangers. But I don't know, it was just something about that made me want to continue. And I have continuously been making those hangers. I'm working on my fourth one now, but the pattern is a little larger than I wanted.
And so,
Okay,
continue.
I've been sewing ever since I was 7 years old. My mama taught me how to sew, me and my twin sister. And when I learned to sew, I was sewing on a treadle machine, like, well, these squares now. You had to work it with your feet
Yeah.
to make it go fast or slow. And she would always say, be careful. Be careful when I get to this part. She said, don't try to sew too fast. You might catch your finger with the needle. And I was the first one, my twin sister, I was the first one to catch my finger with that needle, but I didn't stop sewing. I've been sewing ever since.
Oh, that's lovely. So, talk to me about, you've been sewing for a super long time, and what was the transition into making these Underground Railroad quilts and hangers?
Well,
You said you saw something in a magazine.
I saw the patterns. I ordered the patterns from a magazine. It was Guidepost. There was a Guidepost magazine that I was getting. And I've ordered the patterns. And I made the patterns, but since then I have enlarged the squares. The first one I made, I gave it to him as a gift. I just don't know what made me want to do it, but I'm so happy at my age that I continue to do it. I don't know of anybody in the county who makes the Underground Railroad quilt like I do. I've changed some of the patterns because some of them are complicated to make, and I drew the pattern on a piece of paper and cut it and make it like that wagon wheel. I have 3 different wagon wheels. That one is most complicated. This one is in smaller pieces, and that's why I wanted to enlarge it, but it got to be too large. but I'm working with it.
Yeah, it happens. I get it.
Yeah.
So for somebody who doesn't know about the Underground Railroad, and especially, the messages in these quilts, can you talk to me about what was the origin of this?
The origin of, to me, is talking about the slaves, the people who were enslaved, and how they traveled. Each pattern tells a different story about the Underground Railroad. And I just recently learned what each one of those squares mean. And when I get to talking about it, I get emotional. I get upset. I get happy to tell other people about the Underground Railroad. I'm supposed to be doing a presentation tomorrow talking about the Underground Railroad. And I hope I can get I hope they will get something from what I will tell them about these 10 squares. But it's more than just 10 squares. I think that those 10 squares emphasizes the message of the Underground Railroad.
I could tell it's sparking up a lot of emotion for you.
Yeah,
What?
I can't help it.
I get it. I'm emotional as well. But why is this so profound to you?
I guess I think about my foreparent, my great, great, great. I don't know anything about being enslaved. My immediate family, we weren't ever enslaved, even though I'm 99 and a half years old. But the ones before me, my great, great grandparent, I think about them, what they went through. I'm sure some of them had to be during the slave time. It's just, I don't know.
I get it.
Yeah.
And so you said that there are messages
Yeah.
in each of these squares, and you just recently learned what they mean. What do they mean?
Each square have a meaning. Each square, and it's directing the slaves of what they should do and how they should do it in order to become free.
So, for example, this one right here, what is this telling you? What is this?
That one is the wagon wheel. Up at the top, you'll see to your right.
The blue one?
No, the green. That one is the I call it the screw. It's the monkey wrench. That's called the monkey wrench, and that and the wagon wheel, they are more or less connected, because at the top, that wrench, it tells them to get ready. To get ready. And by getting ready, they're telling the slaves to get ready, because the wagon, the wheel down there, will be to take them to safety. When you get to the wagon wheel, the wagon wheel will take them to safety. The wagon's going to be ready to take off with them. And it's mostly done at night.
What's it mean to continue that legacy, hundreds of years later, is to continue making these things?
To continue doing what, making the quilts. Because each one of those squares tells them a story. And this is my opinion. If they know what is ahead of them, for them to want to be out of slavery, they got to work toward doing the right thing, to make the right connections in order for them to be freed. So I just wish that a lot more people knew about what happened to their foreparent during the time of slavery. I don't know everything, but I'm learning. I'm learning at my late age, and I'm so glad that I have kept up with this part of it, and making the quilts and learning what each one of those squares mean. A lot of time, in some of those squares, the person who's trying to help somebody else, they didn't know that they were risking their own life in trying to help them, but they did. They helped them. And I'm sure some of those enslaved people were happy that they met this person they called the shoe fly. The shoe fly. That one is the one in the middle row to your right. Yeah, that one is called the shoe fly. And that person was called a shoe fly. But that person didn't know that he was risking, or she was risking her own life.
What does a shoe fly mean?
The shoe fly means a person who would help a stranger by hiding them in a cave or a graveyard or the graveyard. There's 3 different places. The graveyard, cave, can't think of the other one. But anyway.
So the shoe fly would hang that flag or that quilt up on their house? So
No. That one don't refer to the shoe fly hanging the quilts. The slaves, the women, who were the ones who would hang the quilts as a billboard.
So it'd say, here's a safe place for you to go.
Okay, that log cabin right there is the one in the middle at the bottom. Yeah, that was the log cabin. The log cabin is it's made like an L. You see, it's the shape of an L. The dark part of that square will say that it's safe to go to the dark part with and the light part, if it had a black square in there, in the middle of the log cabin. If it's a black square, it means that place could be safe for a slave to stop off in. If it had a yellow square in the middle, it means that they would have to wait to see if there was a light there. Sometimes in seeing that light, they might be told that they can't stay there. They'd have to build their own shelter. And can you imagine, you trying to get away from slavery and then they tell you couldn't stay there? Where are they gonna build a shelter? Where will they build a shelter? They ain't got nowhere, they trying to get away. Mm-hmm.
So what is the one you're making right now?
This is a wagon wheel. This is a wagon wheel. This is the real pattern of the wagon wheel that I wanted to enlarge it. Every time I cut a piece, I would get larger and larger. I got one that I started, is much larger than this. So I'm working on this one, trying to get it back. Amy told me, she said, Mama, you got to finish that because I'm going to frame it. She's going to have it framed. She doesn't particularly like the colors that I use, so I'm going to make it and put black in there. And I think it will show up prettier.
Yeah. And the wagon wheel is, remind me, what is the wagon wheel symbol?
The wagon wheel is reminding them to get on board. They're going to freedom.
So powerful.
Yeah,
they're. These types of things aren't told.
You're right. Well, in getting in the wagon, they got to get in there. They got to be put in there. I call camouflage. They got to be hidden in that wagon. You can't be seen. The people all the people that get in that wagon, they can't be seen. So they got to be in there, maybe with some boxes over them or something to camouflage them, keep the slave masters or keep somebody who's following them from seeing who's in the wagon. Ooh, it's something. But I want to get this finished. I've been working on it for 2 months. I got one under the sofa larger than this.
Oh, wow. How long does it take you to make one of these?
To make one of the squares, or to make the whole thing?
Let's do one square and then the whole thing.
Well, it depends on the pattern. See, the bow tie is there. That's simple. The geese, you got to turn them up, down, across, and they're all triangles. If you don't get it just right, it won't even look like that. The one at the top, the blue, that one is the drunkard's path. And that's a complicated one to do because it's like putting a sleeve. Do you sew? Putting a sleeve in a dress.
Right.
Those curves that's in that,
Yeah.
it's complicated. And if you don't get it just right, it's going to be, one side going to be further up than the other.
Right.
So you got to get it just right to make it look zigzag.
Mm-hmm.
And the walking zigzag, that whoever wants to track them, find them, they can't follow the zigzag. But if they walk straight, then they be caught.
So is that what that represents?
Yeah, that's the drunken path.
So let's say, how long does it take you to make, let's say, the bow tie one?
The bow tie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the bow tie, that's the easiest one. That's the easiest one because the bow tie is cut, all of those pieces are cut the same size. Mm-hmm. And it's simple to do. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't take long to make that one.
Okay. And so, talk about, what, I heard that the Underground Railroad was, important here in Virginia as well, where we live. Talk about
Population and location. Mm-hmm. Virginia is the largest, had the largest number of slaves it was 550,000 during 1860.
Wow.
And that was because of the farming. One group, some of the slaves were. Let me see where my note. This is different. Some of the slaves were working on the farms. Was why their population was so big, because I'm not too far from some of the slave plantations. And the other one was location, was where in the what state or what county or whatever, where the slaves were located, it wasn't as many. I need my notes, Edie, my notebook, so I can give her the right word. Oh, he got to go to the car to get it. But it's just so I don't know what. But I just enjoy doing it.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like making these things, you say they're educating you as well?
Yeah.
Why do you think nobody knows about these beautiful quilts and these?
It's a lot of people that I have talked to since I had the invitation to do this in Danville. They don't even know what it's all about. They don't know what it's all about. And I don't know, but I guess the older people along with me, I mean older than I am, I'm sure that they knew some of the facts. But with this generation that's coming on now, they're not teaching that. They don't want the children to know about slavery. That's my thoughts.
Mm-hmm. People like you are, you're educating people. You're keeping it alive.
You know, for 2 years I went to Texas with my son. That's where he lives now. And I went to 2 schools there and talked about the Underground Railroad. The first group I went to, I know I'm getting off your subject, but the first group I went to was the lower children, the smaller children. Mm-hmm. They didn't understand, but I wish you could have seen them. They just looked like they were just waiting for somebody to tell them something. Mm. And the next school, what school was it, a junior high? Junior high, the whole school, the teachers, the students, they came into the auditorium, they sit on the floor, and I talked to them about the Underground Railroad. One little boy was sitting on the floor with his legs crossed, mixed school, and he held his hand up, and I waited for him to say what he wanted. He asked me, "Were you a slave?" And I said, "No." I didn't mean to do it, but I didn't know nothing about being no slave. Those kids were so happy, and that's because they're not teaching them in the schools. They're not letting the teachers have that subject of slavery, nor a lot of other things. And they need to know. He does a lot of substitute in Texas. It's just sad. Not only in Texas, but right here in Virginia. The schools are not teaching. They're taking the books out of the library. Don't want them to know. Not only slavery, but a lot of other things. I just have that feeling because I'm older and I know what's going on. So maybe one day, my granddaughter lives in California, Seattle. She came here, and my daughter took her to Lynchburg, Charlottesville, to some museum up there. And she was surprised at the things that she saw. She was about 13 or 14 years old when she came back. I said, well, I wish I could make one of these quilts, one of these hangers. If I live long enough, I'm going to work on it. If I don't do the whole thing, I'm going to give them a square so they can remember what happened during the time. I might have them to write a story about the square. Just one individual square.
Absolutely. And so come back to what we were talking about earlier while you had to get your notes out here. Why was Virginia such an important place for the Underground Railroad?
Why wasn't there? Repeat, what you said.
you said that Virginia was very important in the Underground Railroad.
Okay.
Explain that a little bit further for somebody who may not know.
Yeah, okay. Okay, just like I told you at the beginning, population and location. I'm going to read this to you. Okay.
Go ahead.
It's two important facts to explain why the Underground Railroad was especially active in Virginia. Number one, Virginia had the largest enslaved population of any of the Confederate States of America, and the majority of the enslaved resided in eastern and central counties of Virginia to support large tobacco farms. The 550,000 enslaved black people living in Virginia equal 1/3 of the state population in 1860. 1/3 in 1860, according to the U.S. Census slave schedule. Now that was the population. Okay, the second fact is about location. Virginia was positioned between southern states permitting slavery and northern states offering freedom. In addition, the networks of rivers in eastern Virginia offered access to ships traveling from Norfolk to Richmond. To Richmond, to southern parts like Philadelphia and beyond in Canada.
So what you're saying is Virginia was sort of that middle state.
Yeah,
So it was once people crossed Virginia, they were able to get north
yeah,
very quickly.
yeah.
And so now, what is it like? Tomorrow you're gonna present, all of these.
I'm going to present all of those squares and tell them something about those squares.
What is that feeling when you got asked to do that?
What
does
was
it
that
mean?
feeling? That, I guess that's why I get so emotional, because of the last part of that. And I want the people to know and understand that we had brave men and women. We had brave men and women worked together years ago. They worked together to help others escape slavery. It's a lot of people who worked together to let other people know about what's happening. This is the part that get me. Let's praise God. Let's praise God. They got the secret message hidden in this quilt, hidden in the quilts that they saw hanging out. Because the quilts back then, the slaves, they didn't buy stuff to make quilts. They used what they had. And in making those quilts, there were all kind of colors, all cuts of the fabric. They didn't have thread to sew them. They used twine, a type of twine, to join those pieces together. I didn't have to do that to make those. I use little scraps to make those. And that's not all of the codes. That's just a few of them.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, what does it feel like to now continue educating people on this?
Well, I feel like that maybe things would be a little different if they knew how the people who were under slavery and how they became free. It's not gonna please everybody, but it's good that they would know what it took to get where they are today.
Well, those are all my questions. Is there anything else you'd like to add? I want to say, but I don't know if I should say it. And it might make the world a little better if they understood. I hope I'm saying it right. I hope they would put the books, stop taking the books away of things that happened to people back. Somebody's gonna say, I don't need to know what happened way back for my grandma, my great-grandma. Yes, you do need to know, because it would keep you from doing some of the same thing that grandma and grandpa went through. You wouldn't have to go through it. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. This world is getting to be, I ain't gonna say a better place. It's a more complicated. It's more. It's worse now than it was during slave time to me.
Right.
I hope I have said something that
You said
that was worth your coming from Lynchburg down here.
I'm actually coming.
Hey, thanks for watching. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch more videos from ABC 13 WSET.